folks, what's happening? Want to thank Brute's Roots, sponsor to the AC Mike Show podcast. Listen, make sure you get on out there, check those folks out there. Educated, recreation, medical, or anything that you need. BrutesRoots.com. Check them out. Thank you, Brute's Roots. Hey, folks, what's happening? AC Mike here, Glass Onion. Another episode, AC Mike podcast, right? Good friend, family, Josh.
How you doing?
Sir, Mr. DiNatale. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir.
Listen, so glad to have you here. This gentleman's family and I go way back into the days of Egg Harbor City, St. Nick's, Crusaders, Trouble, and Sister St. Regis. I could go on, but that'd be for your dad. Josh, real quick, listen, let folks know who you are, what you do. We'll get into Brute's Roots in a little bit, though, but let us know.
For sure. So, name's Josh DiNatale. Been working with Brute's now for 3 years. My dad and stepmom, Kelly Gatto, have been working on this since 2019. You know, my dad's been working on this since 2018. I grew up in South Jersey, grew up in Mays Landing, actually. And now I live in South Philly. You know, my dad breaks my stones all the time. He's like, oh, you grew up at a river house and, you know, big backyard, whole nine, and now you live in a row home in Philly. And I'm like, well, you know, it's awesome. What am I supposed to do? But no, there with my wife right now and just commute back and forth to the farm in Hammonton for Brute's Roots. And, you know, we got a big presence here in South Jersey, being a weed farm. We've got 2 dispensaries right now. We're working on some new brands, some new stores, some new partnerships. It's just continuing to grow.
So, and again, prior to Brute's Roots, Josh, you know, what you were doing now, because you were in a different line of work.
Completely. I was working for a pharmaceutical advertising company for 7 years, even longer when I was an intern. So I worked there for, you know, such a long time. And then, you know, as the business started, you know, developing, you know, my dad and Kelly, you know, we all started talking. We talked about, all right, what can my role be in this? And as it started getting bigger and there was more employees, it was, all right, I'm going to take a lot of the things I learned in the corporate world in Philly, bring them over to Brute's Roots. So as we continue to grow, we can start to implement some of those things and, you know, haven't looked back. It's been an awesome journey and being able to see what we're able to do with this.
Right now, I love it. Again, that Kelly name too, the Gatto name known out here in the great family as well. And just, I go back at the racetrack and I could go on to all that, go sideways with some of the family members. So Brute's Roots, again, in talking with your pop back in the day, he was kind of telling me what he was doing. And Jimmy always had something going on.
Yeah.
In a way, listen, always foot to the ground, working, doesn't stop. Guy's been very successful in his businesses and what he's done. But you see Jimmy with a baseball cap on, blue jeans, and his boots ready to go to work.
Oh, yeah.
Again, when did you say, like, Pop, what are you doing, man? What's going on, bro? You know, I mean, those type of conversations ever come up?
Back when it all
started. And the capital it takes to be able to, and all the bullshit you got to go. I don't want to say bullshit's probably not the right word. You know, the permitting and all the approvals and whatnot.
If there's one thing I've learned with working with him full time now is the amount of headaches you have to go through, all of the ball busting you get when you're trying to build something is crazy.
Can you imagine?
Oh, and like you said, he's constantly pedaled to the metal and, you know, being involved with all these different things when it comes to development, when it comes to, you know, businesses he did here in Atlantic City and, you know, he has a storage facility in Hammonton and all over the place. So, like, being able to see, you know, looking back and realizing, whoa, I don't know how the hell he was doing this. And then, you know, when the weed stuff coming up, you know, his background's in demo and asbestos abatement and construction. When he first brought this up, I was almost like, sure. Like, yeah, you're going to get into weed. That's, yeah. The guy that's never smoked weed a day in his life. You know, would never touch anything. You know, he's going to get into weed all of a sudden and be, you know, Mr. Cannabis. But, you know, as he tends to be, he's persistent. He's doing, you know, he goes around the country looking at different farms and going and do different things. And now it's turned into what it is. And, you know, we're one of the biggest cannabis brands, not only in South Jersey, but in the state. You know, I go up to events up in North Jersey all the time. You know, again, selfishly being in Philly, I go to a lot of those events. And to see some of the people that heard of us, that I'm like, how the hell did you hear about Brute's Roots? Just, it's awesome to see how the name has really gone out there.
Love it. So great answer, Josh. Listen, So when you're talking about Pop, not that this is about Pop, but it is about Pop, Kelly and you and the family and the folks that you have there, whether it's the grow or whatnot. So kind of do you see your role? I mean, you have a role within Brute's Roots. And Kelly, I know she got a role. Do you see you guys, the two of you, keeping him kind of centered? You know what I mean?
For sure.
You know what I'm saying?
For
Because
sure.
I know he's out there doing his thing, but go ahead.
No, it's like I said, it's a lot of ball busting, and I think me being there, I think Kelly being there, we can provide like the let's take a breather, let's think about some of this stuff a little bit, because again, it can get frustrating, and it can get, there are days where we have these incredible wins, and we'll have a meeting or we'll close some kind of deal or get some kind of sale where it's like, wow, like, all right, we're all on cloud nine. But then there's those days where something happens or there's a lot of headaches that go on that you're like, all right, let's all kind of group together. Let's, regroup. Let's talk strategy. And, my dad always likes to say the chess game, right? He likes to talk about that and what has to go into it. So we try and keep him centered a little bit. Kelly from an operations side and, everything she's done to help build this has been incredible. And, she lives and breathes this stuff. Yeah. It's awesome. So like anytime, we as a family all come together. I joke all the time. I'm like, we run out of things to talk about at dinner because we're with each other all day, every day. And so it's like, all right, we kind of take the weekends. We're like, all right, we'll still hit each other up or whatever, but we like to, we kind of like, all right, well, when Monday comes back around, we're all hitting it full steam again on Monday morning. But
get that breather away from each other a little bit, right?
But then, it's also great because everything we talk about is relevant to our lives, right? Like we're constantly talking about, all right, how can we do this better? What's the next step we're going to take in the business with this? And then sometimes, and something I say to a lot of people is you got to remember that it's weed at the end of the day, right? So that kind of cuts when the tension's there, or, sometimes you're thinking things are like all over the place. Sometimes if you take a breather and you're like, yeah, it's weed, it's marijuana. It's not that serious. Right. That kind of adds to it too. But
just take it down a little bit and we got this. And again, the advent of legalizing medical at first, and then now we're into recreational and then also your own, you know what I mean? So take us through those steps again. I know you've been here for, a few years now, but you knew what was going on again with the medical and then being able to recreational and then what it takes to be able to have your own product. And we won't get into the grow yet. I want to get into that afterwards.
Yeah.
Take us through those few.
Yeah. So when the company first started, the big thing the state said was you had to start growing in order to get your products on the shelves and before you could start doing retail, right?
Okay.
So getting all of those things in line, all those ducks in a row, and then, curating a menu for customers. Again, hats off to Kelly for, being able to build all of that and
creative part.
Exactly.
Which all of you guys are part of.
For sure. But she was the one that really hit everything from the ground at the beginning and, continues to do so. But, you're building a brand, you're building something more than just, the thing that we as the cannabis industry are fighting against right now is how do we not just be liquor stores? If we end up just like being a liquor store, then it's not going to be able to be as big as we want it to be. And the thing with, a liquor store is you don't sit there and go, maybe in some circumstances, but you don't sit there and go, I'm going to go 15 minutes out of my current direction to go to this liquor store. It's even if it's to save a couple dollars on a bottle of wine, unless you're buying it by the case, you're not going and driving that extra couple of minutes. So as the state continues to add more and more licenses, we have to fight harder and harder from a marketing standpoint, from a product to stand out. Exactly. And have that customer experience where that person comes there and they actually enjoy coming in there because either they don't feel judged, they're getting the right product, or, they just like the environment that they're sitting in. Right. So curating that and creating something where the person that's coming in there feels comfortable and wants to go out of their way to come to you is huge. Now, there's certain things we can't do to combat it, right? If they just keep adding licenses, no disrespect to Atlantic City, but we see what happened here, right? Like,
absolutely.
There's stores
kind of saturated.
It's very saturated, and there's outside of maybe one or two dispensaries, a majority of them, it's whichever is the closest to you at any given point. Right. And there's no other reason.
It's like any other convenience, any other store or whatnot.
Sure.
Stand up, right? You gotta I got to go grab something. I'm just going to go grab a loaf of bread. And you want Wonder Bread? I know where I can get that. About 19 different places within about a few blocks.
For sure. And on top of that, there was some data that came out yesterday that for the first time ever, there are more people that smoke cannabis daily than drink daily. So
yeah, I've read that somewhere also where it's really that number.
Oh yeah, it started. The curve's starting to,
and altogether, alcohol folks are starting to go right ahead.
No, for sure, and that is something that we need to, as the industry, have to capitalize on.
Right.
And if you're not capitalizing on that, then you're leaving customers behind, and you're not going to be able to continue to grow as a business.
Right. You're leaving it out there again. You want to sell burgers, you got to get those folks who just want the burgers. So. Again, what separates? Again, we're going to jump into this again before the grow because I want to get out into that because that's what I love what you guys do. But what separates Brute's Roots? And again, nothing against what's happening here in Atlantic City. I just always like talking. Hey, there's a slice of pizza, or there's a comedian, or there's a show. What separates Brute's Roots from the others? Again, I'm going to talk personally. Hanging out with Jimmy a little bit when it was going on. We've worked together from the beginning. Off and on, and I know when I was there, one was the ease in which whether you ordered something or you can have it. And this was a couple of years ago. Have it ready for you there, or walk me through it, or speak to somebody about it. But what also I noticed too, and I bring it up every time, I was standing out in the parking lot talking to Jim for a little bit, and I think Kelly was through, was that. I was looking at all these people walking in, from every age group, and a lot of guys and gals who looked like me, So I was like, wow, there's something really going on here, getting their stuff. But again, going back to what I started with before I started going in with my personal experiences, the convenience of it is what separates, because I have my idea of what does, but what do you see? Because you guys have these meetings and definitely sit down and talk about what goes on.
No, it's a combination of a few things. I think the biggest catalyst that we first started with was price.
Huge.
Yeah, huge. Everything, especially now with how the economy is, gas prices as of right now, like everything is through the roof. We can be that one thing in someone's life that is going to be affordable. It's going to be something where you can get a high quality product at a cheap price. Now, the other thing with that too is that the other aspect of it is us being a welcoming store for first timers.
Right.
There's not a big barrier to entry. If someone wants to try cannabis for the first time, they don't have to spend $100 to buy flower or to buy a certain product. They can come in and they can spend, $25 at our store right now I think some of our ACE are at $18, $20. You can come in and you can have that low, dollar figure to come in there, get something quickly, and you could try it, And I think on top of that, being able to have a situation where someone is comfortable coming in there when they're trying it for the first time, because it's new, right?
You can be intimidated or just feel stupid, or
you had a bad experience.
Thank you.
You were in high school or you were in college and you smoked weed for the first time. You had a bad experience. I'm never doing that again. But you can come to our store and you can talk to somebody. You can talk to them and say, "How does this strain make me feel?" Or, "I'm someone that has a lot of anxiety. What can I buy off of you guys? What can I try that I'm not going to go home and I'm going to bug out? I've got back pain. What could I take for that? I need to get my day going. What can I take for that?" We're very much catering to the folks that are trying this, or that are trying cannabis for the first time, and also are, just everyday people that are trying to, either get what they want from us for cannabis, or, like I said, come in for that education.
For the education and just being able to find something new. Because let's face it, folks, it's legal, right? It's legal. Yeah. So just like going to the liquor store, you brought it up, or to a bar, folks want to know, and I'll be honest with you, I'll put it out there. I tried it back in the day, and to your point, anxiety, it just wasn't for me. I mean, this is 100 years ago when I had hair, and but back then, but it just wasn't for me. Again, anxiety. But I find as I grew into, adulthood, really wasn't messing with it or whatnot. But when it became legal, and then my sleep problem.
Yeah.
Again, and I always bring this back to you. I tried everything. When I say I tried everything, went to my doctor, whether it was trazodone or narcotic type sleeping aids. Again, put me to sleep, knocked me out, but made me feel like shit when I woke up. Again, and the dreams, dude, were ridiculous. So I went through these different phases, and I have to admit, it really was about, I'll never sleep. I shouldn't say never. I don't think I'll ever sleep 8 hours. I just never have been that type of guy. But if you give me 5 real good hours or 5 or 6 good hours and not waking up 6 or 7 times, and this is what I found when I walked into Brute's Roots. I kid you not, I talked to Jim and Kelly about it, and I was like, guys, no, I want to check out the operation, and I want to work with you guys in that sense. But I don't know if I'll ever be that type of guy because of the anxiety or what I thought or my past experiences. And I can tell you this, as sure as I'm sitting here, it has helped me in that sense. Really, because I don't want to be bugged out. I want to be, or whatever. But even if that were the case, you and your folks out there know how to talk to a guy like me. I mean, I have in my experiences, and I can say this personally. Again, it has helped me immensely in the sense of being able to get some rest. And people say, well, Mike, it was only 4.5 or it was only 5 hours sleep. But for me, it was okay. It was enough. I just, and then to go into there, not to go into the recreation or the medical one versus the other, or both are the same. But again, some people want it for different reasons.
For sure. And I think there's always a focus on the recreational side. People.
Well, just like going to a bar. You want to have a good time. They're going to go sit and have a good time. Again, I'm not faulting you for that, but go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to jump in.
No, it's the truth though. But everyone always thinks about that, and I think the medical piece of it always gets a back seat because of the switch, over to recreational. But we cater to all those different customers. I know we're going to get into the grow operation, but when we're having those discussions, that was always when we opened up as a medical and recreational store. That was always the focus. How can we make sure that the customer experience is the best, so that way they feel comfortable enough coming back over and over again?
Right. And that's the key, the repetitiveness, the comfortableness, right? I'm going to go where I like that meal or that, recreation or that time, or whether it's a sporting event or whatnot. It's just something that I'm going to do and I enjoy. Again, taking out the angst of it, not knowing, because a lot of people don't know. They want to experience it and they want to explore for different reasons. Again, and I'll go back to it again. Ain't no different from sitting at the bar, bellying up, watching the Eagles play. Again, that's what people do in the lounges and whatnot. As we go in, talking about Brute's Roots, again, Paulsboro, great events. We'll talk about the event you just had recently, not to date ourselves. Let's go to that grow now, because then this is another thing that I feel, again, correct me if I'm wrong, that separates Brute's Roots from the others.
For sure. We are one of the few people in the state that are what you call vertically
First of all, talk how hard that is, too, to do something like that.
I mean, again, this goes back to my dad and Kelly. It's ridiculous. Like, the amount of stuff that, one, to just build a 35,000 square foot building with greenhouses and, the whole setup that we have there. Right now we're in the middle of, putting a solar field up. We're in the middle of an expansion. Like, all of that work that goes into it, I always, hats off to the two of them for being able to, one, set that all up. But then on the regulatory side, being able to, get the licenses to grow, to do manufacturing. And by manufacturing, I mean, vapes, gummies, pre-rolls, the whole nine. It's a lot. It's a lot from a paperwork and a building standpoint. And then there's the actual operations side, which is, one of the pieces that I'm, as we sit here today, more involved with than anything. We have our head grower and our head of operations, Dom, who was on your radio show last time.
Tell us what a head grower is.
Yeah, so he is the man that everything runs through. He's the one.
Great guy.
He's the man. He's the man. He's the man. He
loves his job.
He's our mascot of Brute's Roots too. He's everything that we're trying to do.
Got to put him on a t-shirt.
Bro. Oh, 100%. He's the head cultivator. So from seed to sale, or from the mom room to the clones, everything. He's in charge of how the plants grow, how they live, how they breathe. What we call pheno hunting, which is looking for those next strains that we're going to release. His role grew bigger where he got more in the manufacturing side. So he's in charge of making sure that, the folks in the kitchen and the gummy room are doing their part, which, the girls that we have operating that are killing it. Our lab, making sure that everything in the lab is running smooth, and just the overall operations of the building. It's a lot to handle. So, hats off to him too. A lot of moving parts. But, on the operational side of things, that are more of like the black and white things that, okay, we got to get this done and we got to try and change how we can do this piece of the operation, how we can do this process differently. We do that a lot. But as far as being able to, expand the business, that's something that, in talking with Dom and the rest of the team members about, it's getting that feedback, right? Like our employees are also our customers in a lot of sense, right? Like they're a lot of the folks, a lot of the folks get into the industry because they're fans of the plant and they are somebody that is a customer in the cannabis space and their passion for it, just like someone could have a passion into wine,
right? It
expands into that. So that person that's really into, different vintages of wine gets involved with a winery, right? It's the same process. But on top of the operations, like I was getting at, is what's our next steps as a company, right? So like, we work with partnership deals and licensing deals. We're going to have those potential things that are coming down the line that are going to be huge for the business. And so we're just continuing to build on those things. So the foundation has always been our retail stores that we talk so much about all the time, both now and on your show. But now it's how do we expand the business and expand the empire further? And that is in our wholesale business, right? Like going and you can now, instead of just only getting Brutes Roots at our store, if you're up in North Jersey, you're leaving New York. Oh, I'm at this store right outside New York. I could get Brutes Roots here. Oh, if someone comes down to the shore and they blow by the exit that we're at and they go down close to the shore and they go to a store in Cape May County, oh, Brutes is there. So we're still able to connect with that customer, even if they don't come into our shop. So that is, kind of our next phase as a business. Obviously, we're still working on store number 3. We're going to get that up and going, and there'll be more details on that, as we get, further in the process. But how can we continue to get Brutes in more people's hands across the state?
Right. And to your point, again, when you're talking like that, I'm thinking about one of my favorite condiments. Again, I thought I would outgrow it, but it's just gotten worse with age. Ketchup, right? So ketchup, you go get it everywhere, right? It's out at, it's at this store, that store, whatever. So when it comes to cannabis stores, dispensaries, that's beautiful. Again, so when we talk about, again, the grow, Dom's doing his thing there. He's got a crew around him as well. Huge in a way in Hammonton. Let me ask you this, though. A kid from out there, born in Philly. We came over, I guess, 72, 73, Mollica Township area, and fell in love with those tomatoes. Fell in love with those blueberries, the self-proclaimed blueberry capital of the world, Hammonton. Is it the dirt, bro, or are you bringing in your own dirt?
No, we got to bring in our own dirt, but we do get asked that a lot. Right. And it is funny because it's, we walk around, when we go downtown to Hammonton, we're farmers like everybody else. We're just growing something different, Right. But no, it is funny how you have that farming infrastructure there, so we just plug into it. We're like, we're all
you got
part
to,
of it.
right? Yeah. Listen, that's what they did. Like I said, they weren't the blueberry, and I'm glad that they kept it.
Oh yeah.
But again, they do know how to grow.
Oh yeah.
And you guys are doing the same thing in that sense. Again, that area, Paulsboro, you've opened up there. Talk to us about that a little bit as we get into this. What's going on there, right off that exit. Very convenient. Right and again, I always like saying this too. Old wrestler here. Great wrestling out there in Paulsboro as well.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
No,
I wouldn't mess around in Paulsboro too much. A lot of good wrestling going on.
Oh, there's a lot of
ears.
There's a lot of wrestling going on. There was this weekend, but and I'll get to that in a second. But no, I mean Paulsboro. I got to tell you, the mayor and council there have just been nothing but some of the best people we've ever worked with.
Love it.
Oh my God, Mayor John Giovanetti. He's incredible. Wants to see the town just do well. And, when we were finally awarded the license there, he was one of our biggest cheerleaders, and the council was some of our biggest cheerleaders, where they were waiting for the state and they're saying, what's taking so long for you guys to be open? And, it's part of the process. I understand it. It's part, what you have to do. But, the fact that they were just as excited as we were.
That's got to be a good feeling.
It was incredible. Right. It was incredible. And they're always willing to help us out.
Not apprehensive or
not
anything.
At all.
They were just
not
like,
we
got it.
Not at all.
We got what you're doing.
100%. Right. And, it goes back to what we started talking about with, everything my dad's done and everything he's been involved with, where a lot of that ball busting you'll get from certain, municipalities, we just didn't have that with Paulsboro, and they've been awesome in that sense. But yeah, no, I mean, Paulsboro, big wrestling capital in the state. We had a micro wrestling event this weekend. which is exactly what it sounds like.
Right.
But we had the micro wrestling event. We sold about, I think it ended up being about 300 tickets. 300 tickets there. It was incredible. Again, exactly what you're thinking it is. It was.
Where at? Where in the location?
So we have that big parking lot. We share a building with Bourbon and Brews.
Okay.
Shout out to Laura. Again, great partner, our neighbor. She's awesome. We have a big parking lot there. And in the back is a grass area. So we set up the ring out there. Everyone came. They brought their lawn chairs. Some people, brought their coolers, but whatever. But everyone came. We all sat down. We had a great time, and we were able to sit back and watch the show. It was definitely something we're going to want to do again. Yeah. But not even just that. Like, we have such a big event space out there. We're going to want to do a bunch of different things. So some of the partnerships we talked about, we're going to want to do maybe some simulcast podcasts or radio shows, or doing some. I've been talking with some bands about doing like a battle of the bands, or like a concert type thing that's there. Right. We're 15 minutes away from the sports complex. If you've ever been to any of the, if you went to any of the World Cup games, or if you've been to the All-Star game or any games recently, you'll see the Roots banner playing that says
I see it.
Legal weed 15 minutes away, which is true. So if you're leaving a game, you can go right there. Or if you're coming to the complex to tailgate, some people make pit stops there. I'm not condoning crossing state lines with cannabis, but that's what people do. I'm not telling them to do that. But nevertheless, you're right there in Paulsboro. So having that Philly connection right there has been huge for us. And also just the convenience, like we talked about before, being on 295 right off of exit 18, you can get on, get off. And if you're just someone passing through, you can come there too.
Love it. So, I mean, again, spreading yourselves out and, in the way of information, in the way of cannabis, as a way of recreation, medical, different locations, different events. I mean, I could see it, like you said, I envisioned, bands out there, and of course you got right into it. Mm-hmm. And again, that's the thing, Josh, is again, what separates you, Brute's Roots from the others. But again, when I think about that, when I say that, it's experience.
Yep.
Right. So 100%. Talk about that. You've talked about it for half an hour. So it's an experience. It's not just going in to go get my bottle of ketchup and leave and be done. You're bringing people an experience. If you just want to roll in and get your stuff and roll, that's cool too. Cool. But there's other, the creative part.
Yeah. It's, it comes down to the products that we're putting together, what we're naming things, and the motif.
Do I see an AC mic bag?
I mean, listen, go ahead. That might be in the works. We'll see.
Like a sandwich,
But that is something that between all of us, both at the Grow and me, Dad, and Kel, and with the retail folks and my brother Jake, like we are all like intimately involved in trying to come up with. When that person comes in there, and like you said, they might come in there, they might want to get their stuff and leave. And of course, like I get it. Sometimes, same thing, like a liquor store, you're just going in, you're not trying to hang out, you're just trying to go in and out. But if you ever been to like Total Wine in Delaware, you're going in there and that's an experience. You're going in there and they got everything in there. They've got anything you could choose from. And, we have our select products in there, but you're able to come in there, you're able to learn a thing or two, and you're able to hang out. And that's, what we as Brute's Roots are trying to do. We're trying to educate, give you something at a, affordable price, and give you something that's high quality.
Love it. And again, you guys are all over the place, whether it's the banner planes and whatnot. And I'd like to share this. Again, first of all, I want to thank you. Again, I can't wait to have you back on some of these events. I can't wait till we get out there and do some live streaming or whatnot, whether it be a remote podcast as well in one of your locations when one of these crazy events or fun events are going on. But I always like sharing this, Josh, too, about your dad. Again, way back in the day, I think it was my sophomore year in high school, Papa's taking me to wrestling practice. Again, this has nothing to do with Brute's Roots or anything like that. Just the love that I have for that man. And we don't have to be up each other's ass every day or eating or breaking bread. But my dad's taking me to wrestling practice. We're going down Route 50. It's an optional practice because there's a huge snowstorm, no school. Coach DiNatale calls and says, "Hey, guys, we want to have a practice. Come on down." I go to my dad. "Pop, can we go to practice?" "Yeah, get in the car." Long story short, we get in a little fender bender. We're on 50. It used to be Martha's. Now I don't know what it's called. We're pulling back into the lane. Pop didn't drive fast. But the storm was not like in the Mays Landing area. Little ice. We slide in, hit a pole, get wrapped around. Who's the first guy out there to pull me out of the car? My dad stuck in there. Was your father. We were young guys, and I'll never forget him. He stayed with us the whole time, and again, unbelievable time. And I always tell you, it's not one of those things. I'm not busted balls, but it could have very easily just burnt up in that car, or not being the emergency come out, the fire department and whatnot. But if it weren't for your father, bro, I'm telling you right now. So again, that goes back there. We may not be sitting here, but love the guy, love the family through the years. And I'm so happy to see this flourish, because I know the work that all of you, the whole team have put into it, because whether it's permitting, seeing what the state's doing, how do you advertise what you do? You guys have found a way. Again, it's still early on, but to get that Brute's Roots, trademark out there to the masses. Last word to you. I just had to put that personal note in there. Again, I appreciate you coming in. I appreciate you working with us and what we're doing, and giving people, again, you've said it probably about 4 or 5 times in this sit down, information, education. Again, so important.
Well, thank you again for having us, or having me rather. Thank you for continuing to have our guys on the radio show. I think continuing to get the word out on what we're trying to do, our story. Folks can come on our website, brutesroots.com, Instagram's brutes.roots, Brutes Roots Paulsboro. Like I said, there's a lot of things that we're cooking up that are going to be huge. So people are going to continue to see Brutes in a lot of stores. People are going to continue to see us open new stores. And we're just going to keep building on and moving on up.
And I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, where did the name Brute's Roots come from?
The listeners will have to do a little bit of research on that one.
Okay.
But I will say they crushed it on the name. I think Brute's Roots is not, when you dig into it a little bit, it actually is the perfect. It is actually the perfect name for this business. And
love it.
Doing it all.
My man, appreciate you. Love what you do. Love your family. Love you. Again, keep doing what you're doing and getting it out there. And it's here. It's there. It's everywhere. And again, the more information that can be put out, I think that separates you from everywhere. Letting people feel comfortable. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate you, man. Again, we'll be talking to you real soon.
Thanks, Mike.
There you go, folks. That's the way. Brute's Roots. That's the way to go. You know what's up. Paulsboro, EHT. And abroad, too. There's going to be some others.
Yeah, we'll see.
All right.
In a store near you.
And do your homework. That's it.